They mocked me. They mocked me. They mocked me. I heard the jokes sharpen before they left their mouths. Their words were daggers. Their laughter, chains around my neck. Every smirk, a verdict. Every whisper, a sentence. They passed judgment with casual hands and full plates, as if hunger were a crime, as if dreaming were treason. Blood means nothing when the blood is cold. They looked at me and saw an empty chair wearing a face. They counted what I didn't own and called it proof. Proof that I was small. Proof that I was finished. Proof that I would never be the one to carry the name forward. They thought the name would bury me. They thought the name would be my coffin. Listen, you know this ache. You know the heat behind the eyes that you swallow like poison. You know how a joke turns to a bruise when it is spoken by your own. I took their laughter into my lungs until it burned. I choked on it. I nearly drowned in it, but I learned to breathe underwater. They talked about me as if I wasn't set there. They spoke in little knives and thin smiles. They clinked glasses like hammers. They built a cage out of mockery and called it love. I was the poor relation, the empty pocket, the burden that dared to stand. Their words were daggers, their laughter chains around my neck. And yet the chain taught me tension. The chain taught me how to pull. The chain taught me that restraint can become strength when you learn where it's anchored. I traced the links back to their fear. I felt it. I recognized it. They feared the one they could not control. They said I had nothing. Nothing to offer. Nothing to bring. Nothing to build with. They measured worth in what could be counted. They forgot that fire is uncountable until it burns the house down. They forgot that hunger multiplies when starved. They forgot that silence is not surrender. Silence is study. Silence is steel in the making. Look at yourself. Look at the scars you hide under polite sleeves. Do you see weakness, or do you see a map? Every cut a direction. Every bruise a compass. They tried to tattoo shame into me. It became scripture. I read it until the letters bled into purpose. I remember the nights my name felt like a weight tied to my ankles. I remember the rooms where hope went to die. I remember counting the cracks in the walls like prayers. I remember bargaining with the darkness. Leave me a spark, and I will repay you with a blaze. The darkness agreed. It always agrees with those who refuse to be swallowed. They mocked me. They mocked me. They mocked me. But mockery is a metronome. Tick, tock. Turn it into rhythm. Turn it into work. Turn it into a march. I learned the beat of my own becoming from the music of their contempt. I learned to dance with pain until pain took the lead. I wore nothing like a creed. Nothing on my back, nothing in my pockets. But I carried a ledger no one else could see. Debits of disrespect, credits of resolve, balance due destiny. I wrote with a pen filled with my own stubborn blood. I signed every page with defiance. They called me foolish for believing I could build air into architecture. They forgot that faith is scaffolding. They forgot that grit is mortar. They forgot that obsession is a kind of gravity that drags the future toward your hands. I kept reaching. I kept bleeding. I kept going when going was the only thing I could afford. Hear me. If you are starving, let hunger be your teacher. If you are mocked, let their laughter clock your hours. If you are dismissed, learn to turn dismissal into discipline. Let them purge you of illusions. Let them burn away your softness. Let them make the wolf in you open its eyes. Their words were daggers. Their laughter chains around my neck. So I learned the anatomy of a blade. I learned how to catch it, turn it, wield it. I learned that chains can be melted. I learned that metal remembers fire more than it remembers fear. I learned that when they push your head down, the ground becomes a springboard. They said I had nothing. I had the only thing that matters. A promise spoken so quietly that even I could barely hear it. I whispered it into the marrow of my bones. I will return. I will return with more than you can measure. I will return with more than you can carry. I will return, not to ask for a seat, but to own the table. They mocked me. They mocked me. They mocked me. And I thank them now. Because mockery is the forge. Because contempt is coal. Because rejection is the bellows. They raised the heat. I became the blade. Remember this. They wanted me broken. I refused to kneel. They wanted me silent. I taught my silence to roar. They wanted me small. I learned the size of my shadow, and it stretched beyond their walls. This is the debt I owe them. None. This is the oath I owe myself. All. I was torn apart. I rebuilt. And now I rise. The silence of the outcast. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a coffin that never closes. It is the silence of a room where laughter never enters. It is the silence of a world that turns its back and waits for you to disappear. I lived there. In the corners no one looked. In the spaces no one claimed. I was the shadow at the edge of the table. The ghost at the feast. The name no one cared to call. The nights were long. Too long. Sleep was a stranger. Dreams murdered before they could be born. I stared at cracked ceilings as if they could answer me. I counted the hours, by the way. The walls groaned. And in that suffocating quiet, every failure screamed louder than thunder. You know that silence. The silence where your own thoughts hunt you. The silence where your doubts sharpen their claws. The silence where you question if breathing is just a waste of time. I asked myself that question more times than I can count. And still, I chose to breathe. Not because it was easy. Not because it was beautiful. But because I was too stubborn to die where they left me. I looked into mirrors, shattered by my own fists. My reflection cut into pieces. Each shard showed a different face, one of anger, one of despair, one of madness. I studied them all. I accepted them all. And in that broken glass, I found the only truth that mattered. If no one would stand beside me, I would stand for myself. Silence became my teacher. It stripped away the noise. It stripped away the lies. It stripped away the comfort that keeps people soft. And what was left was hunger. Pure, unrelenting, unforgiving hunger. They thought silence would bury me. But silence does not bury. Silence carves. Silence chisels. Silence shapes the stone into a blade. And I let it cut me into the weapon I needed to become. I became my own ally, my own confessor, my own executioner, my own savior. In silence, I learned to stop waiting for their hands to pull me up. I learned to crawl, then to stand, then to rise. Every empty room taught me discipline. Every sleepless night taught me endurance. Every shattered dream taught me how to build one sharp enough to cut back. I was the outcast. But outcasts are free from chains of approval. Outcasts learn the language of survival the privileged will never know. Look at yourself. You who sit in the dark, convinced the world has forgotten you. Listen to the silence. It is not your enemy. It is your forge. It is your fire. It is your crown waiting to be claimed. I buried my screams under layers of quiet. I buried my tears under dust and ash. But silence kept them alive, simmering, waiting, until one day I understood. The silence was not my prison. It was my womb. In silence, I became my own ally. In shadows, I forged my own fire. And when the world finally turned to look again, they didn't find the broken child they abandoned. They found the storm their silence had raised. The fire in the ruins. That is where I found myself, surrounded by the ashes of everything they told me I'd never be. Burned dreams, shattered hopes, the rubble of a life mocked into dust. I stood there, barefoot in the wreckage, with nothing but the sting of memory and the echo of their laughter. They thought the flames would consume me. They thought the ruin was my grave. They thought I would end here. They thought wrong. Because in the ashes, I found a spark. Small, weak, barely alive. But it was mine. It was the proof that I was not finished. It was the whisper of defiance, breathing inside the smoke. Every ruin is a lesson. Every collapse is an invitation. The world breaks you down, not to bury you, but to see what survives when the walls fall. And what survived in me was hunger. What survived was fire. I was the broken stone that became the foundation. I was the rubble that grew teeth. I was the dust that chose to rise instead of scatter. Look closer at the ruins around you. Do you see endings? Or do you see beginnings disguised in disguise? Every fire leaves behind embers, and embers, when fed with rage, become infernos. They told me rejection was a verdict. They told me failure was final. But rejection is fuel. Failure is the furnace. And I was the iron dropped into the blaze. The more they mocked me, the hotter I burned. The more they dismissed me, the sharper I became. They thought I would end here. They thought wrong. I learned to love the ruins, because ruins mean freedom. No ceiling above me, no chains to hold me, just open sky and fire underfoot. They gave me nothing but ashes, so I built my empire out of flame. When you are left with nothing, you are finally free to create everything. When you are cast into ruins, you either rot or you rise. And I chose to rise. With blood in my teeth, with fury in my chest, with silence turning into screams of triumph. I was forged in the furnace of rejection, and now I burn with a fury they cannot control. I was broken into dust, but dust is the beginning of stone. Stone is the beginning of monuments. And monuments are the reminders that ruins do not last forever. Look at me. Look at the ruin they left behind. Do you see destruction? I see construction. Do you see an ending? I see the first page. Do you see ashes? I see fire waiting to be reborn. They thought I would end here. They thought wrong. I took the ashes and wore them as armor. I took the rubble and stacked it into steps. I took the fire and swallowed it whole. And from that moment forward, I stopped asking for light. I became it. Remember this. The world may burn you down to cinders, but a single spark can set the sky ablaze. And when you learn to guard that spark, to feed it with rage, to grow it with defiance, you become unstoppable. I was the broken stone that became the foundation. The rejected outcast who built fire into fortune. The ruin they thought would destroy me became the cathedral of my strength. They thought I would end here. They thought wrong. And from the ruins, I rose to burn the horizon. The birth of the wolf. That was the moment meekness died. That was the moment I tore the last layer of weakness from my skin and let it bleed in the dirt. That was the moment silence turned into growl, and growl into roar. For too long, I moved like prey. Head lowered, eyes down, breath shallow. I thought survival meant hiding. I thought endurance meant submission. But prey does not inherit the earth. Prey becomes a footnote in the teeth of predators. So I shed it. The softness, the hesitation, the apologies that tasted like ash on my tongue. I buried the sheep, and from its grave, the wolf rose. A wolf does not beg. A wolf does not bow. The wolf does not wait for permission. It takes, it hunts, it claims what it sees and defends what it bleeds for. And in that revelation, I understood. To be feared, I had to stop fearing. To rise, I had to kill the weakness within. I became storm in motion, thunder in flesh, fire in veins. I let hunger carve me hollow, so obsession could fill the void. I did not eat for comfort. I devoured for conquest. Every failure became marrow. Every scar became muscle. Every wound became instinct. They thought I was their victim. They thought I would kneel beneath their laughter forever. But I am not their victim. I am my own creation. Say it again. I am not their victim. I am my own creation. Then creation is not gentle. Creation is violent. Creation is chaos sculpting itself into order. I tore my old self apart, ripped the bones of fear from my chest, crushed the skull of doubt beneath my heel. I drank the blood of my own weakness and spat it back as fury. I walked into storms without flinching. I sought out mountains meant to break me. I welcomed the teeth of struggle, because wolves grow sharper against resistance. I was not content to survive. I swore to dominate. You see, wolves do not apologize for their hunger. They do not explain their scars. They do not fear the dark. They are the dark. And when I realized this, when I embraced the beast inside me, I felt the world tremble beneath my steps. The meat child is gone, buried in the silence of yesterday. In his place stands hunger. In his place stands obsession. In his place stands the wolf. I am not their victim. I am my own creation, not forged by their approval, not crafted by their love, but shaped by their hatred, carved by their betrayal, sharpened by their mockery. Their rejection was the hammer. Their laughter was the anvil. And I the weapon, born from the blow. To be feared, I had to stop fearing. To rise, I had to kill the weakness within. And I killed it, without remorse, without hesitation, without looking back. Now when they see me, they no longer see prey. They see the wolf at the edge of the fire, eyes burning, breath heavy, unchained, unforgiving. And they finally understand. The one they mocked has become the one they fear. I am not their victim. I am my own creation. And my creation is eternal. The climb through shadows. That was the true war. Not the laughter. Not the insults. Not even the silence. The war was in the climb. The endless, merciless climb where every handhold cut flesh and every step forward cost blood. I bled for ground no one wanted. I starved for chances no one believed I could take. My hands tore open against walls that refused to move. Yet still, I dragged myself higher. Sleepless nights. Betrayals carved into my back like fresh scars. Deals broken. Doors slammed, faces smiling with teeth, while they poisoned my name behind me. And yet I climbed. Every failure became a rung. Every insult became a foothold. Every betrayal became a jagged stone I pressed my fingers into. They thought failure would bury me, but I learned how to turn mountains of failure into ladders. I climbed their rejection. I scaled their doubt. Every door they closed became the wall I scaled. Do you know what it means to build in the dark? To build when no one sees, no one applauds, no one believes. It is a loneliness that gnaws at your ribs. It is a hunger that turns you hollow. It is working until dawn greets you like an enemy, and still finding the will to keep going. They feasted while I starved. They raised glasses over banquets, while I raised blistered hands over scraps of opportunity. Their laughter filled halls of comfort. My silence filled rooms of struggle, but comfort softens, and hunger sharpens. And I sharpened myself into something they would one day choke on. I did not climb for applause. I did not climb for their love. I climbed because the pit was death, and the only direction left was up. Nights bled into years. I sold my comfort. I buried my exhaustion. I walked through storms with eyes wide open. I wore scars as currency. I paid in sweat. I paid in pain. And every payment was an investment in the empire no one saw coming. They betrayed me. But betrayal is nothing more than free education. It taught me where trust dies. It taught me where greed breeds. It taught me who I would never become. And in that teaching, it gave me strength no ally could provide. I did not need their hands. I needed their rejection. I did not need their gifts. I needed their doors slamming in my face. I did not need their light. I needed their darkness, so I could learn how to blaze. The climb was brutal. The climb was merciless. But the climb was mine. Mine to suffer. Mine to endure. Mine to conquer. I remember the taste of hunger like iron in the mouth. I remember the sting of cold floors as I slept where I fell. I remember the voices in my head whispering, "Quit, quit." But my blood answered louder. Climb, climb, climb. And climb I did. Step by step. Scar by scar. Night by night. Until shadows became my training ground. Until pain became my language. Until failure bowed its head and became my servant. They will never understand the climb. They will only see the view from the top. They will never feel the bleeding hands. They will only see the gold rings. They will never taste the hunger. They will only taste the feast. But I know the truth. The feast means nothing without the famine. The summit means nothing without the climb. Every door they closed became the wall I scaled. Every shadow became the fire I carried. Every wound became proof that nothing could stop me. So yes, they mocked. Yes, they betrayed. Yes, they left me to starve. But I climbed anyway. And in that climb I became untouchable. Because the climb through shadows is not just survival. It is transformation. It is resurrection. It is the proof that no one, not family, not betrayal, not the weight of the world, can keep a wolf from reaching the peak it was born for. And when I reached it, when I dragged my bleeding hands onto the edge of destiny, I didn't just rise. I became the mountain itself, the return in gold. The day they swore would never come. The day the outcast stepped out, not in rags, not in silence, but in gold. Not the glitter of ornaments, not the hollow shine of borrowed wealth, but the fire-forged brilliance of an empire I built with my own hands. I remember the boy they mocked, pockets empty, eyes down, heart heavy with their laughter. That boy died in the ruins, and from his ashes I was reborn. Now look, skyscrapers rise like monuments, each one a gravestone to their doubts. Steel and glass glimmering with my name, etched into the skyline. Every floor, every brick, every light in those towers is a scar made solid. Cameras flash like lightning across the night. Crowds gather, whispering the name they once spat as insult. The same eyes that rolled now widen. The same mouths that mocked now stumble into silence. From nothing to everything. From dust to dynasty. I built what they said was impossible. I turned rejection into currency. I turned hunger into obsession. I turned silence into strategy. And now the world watches, choking on the truth. The forgotten child has become the master of empires. They feasted while I starved, but tonight they starve for a seat at my table. They raised glasses in my absence. Now they raise them in my honor. Though their smiles tremble, though their envy bleeds through the cracks, they taste bitterness with every toast. Because the empire they never believed in now towers over them like judgment. From nothing to everything. From dust to dynasty. Do you feel it? The sweetness of triumph, sharpened by the salt of memory. Victory alone is power, but victory in the face of betrayal, that is divine. That is justice made flesh. That is the sound of mockery drowning in silence. I walk through halls where my name glows in gold letters. I see workers, believers, followers, people who bet on me when no one else did. Their footsteps echo like drums of war. Their loyalty is the proof that empire is not built on love. Empire is built on will. Empire is built on defiance. Empire is built on fire that refuses to die. They thought my exile was the end, but exile was only the seed. And that seed grew into $1 billion storm. Now every contract is a scar signed in ink. Every building is a monument carved from my hunger. Every dollar is a dagger, sharpened by years of silence. From nothing to everything. From dust to dynasty. And yet, listen closely. The gold does not erase the bitterness. It amplifies it. Because I remember the smirks, the whispers, the mocking tone dripping with venom. I remember the tables where they laughed at my emptiness. And now, I sit at the head of a table they cannot afford to approach without bowing. Triumph tastes best when served cold, and I serve it with every headline that bears my name. Every flash of the camera is a reminder. Every skyscraper is a punishment. Every success is a sentence that chains them to their regret. Do not mistake me for merciful. I did not build this empire for their forgiveness. I built it so they would choke on remembrance, so that every time they look up, they see what they lost, so that every time they close their eyes, they see what they mocked, so that every time they breathe, they taste the dust of the dynasty they tried to bury. From nothing to everything. From dust to dynasty. And as I stand draped in the empire they swore I would never touch, I do not smile for them. I do not bow for them. I do not even speak their names. I stand only for myself. The outcast child turned wolf. The wolf turned storm. But the storm turned empire. This is my return. Not in silence. Not in shadow. But in gold. And let them know this truth. From nothing to everything. From dust to dynasty. From exile to eternity. The eyes of regret. That is where I found my true revenge. Not in violence. Not in fire. Not in fury. But in the hollow gaze of those who once laughed at my ruin, now forced to watch my rise. They stood there, trembling hands clutching at glasses they could no longer lift with pride. Their smiles cracked like old porcelain, desperate to mask the fear bleeding through. They dressed themselves in pride, but their eyes betrayed them. Hollow, wide, drowning in disbelief. Because the child they mocked had returned as the empire they could never control. The same mouths that mocked now whisper. The same eyes that rolled now bow. Do you see it? The way their hands shake when they try to clap. The way their voices falter when they attempt to congratulate. Every word of praise tastes like poison to them. Yet they swallow it because the empire demands respect. And I savor every drop of their regret. Their regret is my crown. It glitters brighter than gold. It weighs heavier than jewels. It sits upon my head, forged from every insult, every laugh, every dismissal. And it fits perfectly. I do not need their apologies. Their silence is enough. I do not need their tears. Their eyes already betray them. Every glance is a confession. Every shiver is a testimony. They regret ever doubting me, and that regret chains them tighter than love ever could. The same mouths that mocked now whisper. The same eyes that rolled now bow. I watch them from across the room. The feast no longer belongs to them. They sit at tables I own. They eat food I paid for. They breathe air in towers built from my scars. And they know it. Oh, they know it. Every bite turns bitter in their mouths. Every breath tastes of defeat. Because success is not just my triumph. It is their punishment. They once looked at me as though I were nothing. Now they cannot look at me without seeing everything they lost. They cannot speak my name without choking on envy. They cannot smile without showing the cracks in their mask. And I let them live in that torment, because it is sweeter than any blade could ever be. Their regret is my crown. Their envy is my throne. Their whispers are the anthem of my empire. The same mouths that mocked now whisper. The same eyes that rolled now bow. This is the justice they cannot escape. Every success I claim tightens the noose of their shame. Every headline with my name is a dagger twisted deeper. Every skyscraper with my logo is a monument to their failure. I wear no jewels on my hands. Their trembling is my treasure. I wear no medals on my chest. Their hollow stares are my armor. I wear no chains of gold around my neck. Their whispers are the music I march to. And when they sleep at night, they dream not of their own victories, but of the empire that haunts them. The empire they mocked into existence. Their regret is my crown, and I will wear it until the end of days. The same mouths that mocked now whisper. The same eyes that rolled now bow. And their regret, their endless suffocating regret, that is the sweetest victory of all. The crown of shadows. The moment when triumph is no longer a victory. It is a coronation. Not with gold, not with jewels, but with scars carved deep into my flesh, and betrayal burned into my bones. I sit not on a throne of marble. My throne is built from scars. Every wound, a stone. Every betrayal, a pillar. Every sleepless night, a foundation. They tried to bury me beneath rubble, but rubble became my fortress. They tried to burn me alive, but the fire became my light. And now, I sit in the seat they swore would never be mine. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. The crown I wear was not gifted. It was forged in the heat of mockery. It was hammered into shape by rejection. It was sharpened on the edge of hunger. Every insult they hurled is a jewel in its frame. Every doubt they spoke is gold melted into its form. This crown is not polished. It is jagged. It cuts the scalp as I wear it, reminding me that power is never gentle. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. My empire is not lit by sunlight. It glows with shadows. The shadows they cast when they turned their backs on me. The shadows of nights I spent alone. The shadows of silence that taught me how to roar. This empire is illuminated by darkness, and in that darkness, I am eternal. They thought power belonged to them. They thought wealth was their inheritance. They thought I would rot in silence. But silence was the forge, and I was the fire. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. Listen closely. I do not forgive. I do not forget. I do not soften with victory. I sharpen with it. Every success is another blade. Every triumph, another chain around their necks. Their regret is not only my crown, it is their prison. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. Do you see me now? The child they mocked, the outcast they rejected, the shadow they dismissed. I am none of those things. I am the storm they unleashed. I am the fire they sparked. I am the throne they tried to deny, and I will not step down. I wear betrayal as a mantle. I wear pain as armor. I wear shadows as my kingdom, and I rule with the certainty of a god carved from fury. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. Because this is not just victory. This is dominion. This is not just survival. This is sovereignty. This is not just revenge. This is legacy. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. And I will serve as a reminder. For that shadows do not die. They reign. They endure. They conquer. The immortal legacy. The last chapter not written in anger, but in permanence. This is where revenge fades, and something greater takes its place. Understand this. My story is no longer theirs. It is no longer about family tables or broken laughter. It is no longer about proving them wrong. They have already choked on their regret. They have already bowed before the empire they mocked. This now belongs to history, to memory, to eternity. I was the ghost they buried. Now I am the empire they bow to. Do you hear the quiet? That is the sound of inevitability. Not screams, not applause, just silence. A silence that stretches across generations, reminding all who hear it that shadows leave deeper marks than sunlight ever could. The scars they gave me became scripture. The ruins they left me became monuments. And the crown they denied me became eternal flame. This is not about their betrayal anymore. This is about my legacy, from nothing to everything. One day they will forget the faces of those who mocked me, but they will not forget mine. One day their names will vanish like dust in the wind, but my name will remain carved into steel, burned into glass, etched into the very bones of this world. Because legacy is not built on their approval. It is built on defiance. It is built on fire that refuses to die. It is built on the will to rise again and again, until the world itself kneels in recognition. I was the silence they ignored. I became the storm they feared. And now I am the legacy they cannot erase. From nothing to everything. From exile to eternity. From shadow to throne. I was the ghost they buried. Now I am the empire they bow to. Remember this truth. The greatest vengeance is not destruction. It is existence. The greatest power is not fear. It is permanence. The greatest crown is not gold. It is memory, unchallenged, unbroken, unforgettable. From nothing to everything. And now, silence. The kind that lingers. The kind that cannot be killed. The kind that echoes long after the voice has faded.